And shalom, 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 shalom. Um, I I wrestled with whether to go live today and or pre-record a quote unquote live session, so and deliver it to the Yeshua remnant and those who listen after I have pre-recorded it today. I wrestled because a very um, I've had a very interesting day. For those of you who do not know, on this past Sabbath, I was getting ready to engage at 7 o'clock p.m. on the Sabbath, and immediately, right about the time that I was getting ready to go live, I was met with a very peculiar problem. Again, and we'll get into that in a minute, but I say shalom. I say shalom to you, but really, I'm in need of some today. Um, and I'm going to seek to bring understanding on the subject of uh, the Hebrew understanding calendars and truth from the oracles of Yahweh. I'm going to seek to bring understanding, knowing that my plight in this life as a prophet, as a person, to be understood may never be fulfilled. So I'm going to search and try to the best of my knowledge today to persevere forward when in reality I don't really feel like it. Uh, don't really feel like releasing. As a matter of fact, today uh, I was supposed to release this information yesterday after the situations that happened with technology on the Sabbath, and I allowed things yesterday to shrink me again than to show up. So today, when it doubled in its uh, capacity, I just went ahead and said, I'm going to show up to bring understanding and eliminate the desire to be or to believe that I will be understood in my life. So, those of you who don't know, on the Sabbath, I was engaged in, um, I was getting ready to engage the Sabbath at 7, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, out of the 20 plus devices in my home that rely on hardline or Wi-Fi network, all of a sudden, in my areas, in my office, and in every major component that I needed to get online, only my information um, began to malfunction. Now, I'm not making this up, and neither do I expect for you to believe me unless I give you understanding. It wasn't me being lackadaisical or not wanting to take care of the technology, but it was all of a sudden, right before 7 p.m., um, everything that I had information on, laptop, my personal laptop, my backup studio computer that I go through the process with, just would not connect. And mind you, that every device that had anything that I needed for the Sabbath at 7 went away, just stopped working. So it took me some time to get everything back up and running. And the answer was not as clear as it should be, because every other 20 plus devices in my home was working fine. Um, the kids' tablets, internet for the rest of the home. In the same vicinity area where my office is, other devices work just fine. Other devices on the different areas of my home work just fine, but these areas would not work. And so probably even prior to 7, I was dealing with some situations that ultimately led me to just take a step back. And so, for those of you who don't understand, I have a very hard job, and that's not a violin time to speak, but I have a very hard job, and that is to release information in the earth, knowing that the level of information, the things that are shared about the truth of the word of the scriptures, from the Torah to Malachi, to unpacking the truth of the new covenant and the issues that swell around that, I have to encounter major warfare. I also have to encounter diligently corresponding and communicating with every aspect and area of my life, knowing that the ultimate goal by Satan, Lucifer, is to get me to shut up, whatever means necessary. If it be by discouragement of viewership, if it be by discouragement of my own personal degradations, whatever the situation is, the goal of Satan, make no bones about it, the word is Satan, Lucifer, is to get me to sit down, is to get me to shut up. And if it's in business, personal life, biblical life, prophetic life, the goal is to make me stop communicating. And if you've ever prayed for me, pray for me now. My vulnerability is my superpower. And I will not hide the fact that right now I am discouraged. But I will fight with everything that I have. Not focused on only the premise of doing it for you, but I must fight for me. For those of you who may not understand, that warfare is real and things, I am attacked in every area of my life, from every angle. And my major job is to communicate to the world, from the aspects of my family to my businesses, prophetically to individuals, and to be able to stand no matter what. The warfare becomes great, be it my own warfare, be it my own situations, be it other situations. From spiritual wickedness and demon activity, it is not desired that what is shared and what is given, no matter what the audience capacity, the goal is for me to shut my mouth. If it be Elias running to a cave or a juniper tree, whatever the situation, the goal is to shut down my communication. So if you ever prayed before, I ask that you pray for me now. I wasn't going to do this today, even though all the material is up and running after all of a sudden mechanisms went crazy on the Sabbath. And I really should have released it yesterday. And I allowed myself to be impacted by things that I should not have. And today the same doubled down on me mentally from many angles, a myriad of angles. But yet here I am. I'm not a superhero. I'm just showing my super strength, the vulnerability, and continuing to communicate and try to do so as effective as I possibly can. Let's go right in to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yahweh, you are our strength. And I ask you now to give me the ability to speak forward, to speak fluidly, and to speak finitely, so that those that hear may hear. Amen. Those of you who have been waiting, I want to let you know that the first order of the institution that I've been dealing with to release a more authentic version of the scripture. I am waiting for those to come in any day now. I'm waiting for those to come in any day now. As soon as they come in, I will be releasing those to those individuals. If you are a current transformer with Zoe Life Coaching, Counseling, and Consulting, you can believe that you are receiving yours on the first batch. Those of you who have spoken about them, not all the transformers, be clear about that. Communicate clearly. Not all of the transformers with Zoe Life Coaching, Counseling, and Consulting, not all will receive a copy of the unabridged scripture. But if you have made contact and you know that I've contacted you, you will be receiving that as soon as it comes in. For those who are interested in receiving the unabridged scripture that reads closer, very close to the narrative of the Hebrew and the Greek, understanding in plain English, without all the transfigurations and taking out all the gobbledygook that should never have been in there in the first place, added words, changed words. This is what I teach from. And this is one of the few items, many items that I will be releasing on the new platform that I am working on now, where I will be delivering to individuals monthly books, ebooks, tangible books, messages, videos, special gifts on my own platform and network that I'm finalizing now. And that will be coming in the near future. If you are interested in receiving one of those unabridged scriptures, and you want that for your own personal library, make sure that you, in the comments below and in my inbox on Facebook, make sure that you let me know that you're interested in those things, and I will send you an order form for that. That will be, it'll be $34.99. That is with shipping and handling all included. That's everything that you will receive this spectacular Bible scripture that I teach from on a regular basis, and that will remove all the fanciness that man has designed to put in it. If you're not interested and you have religious comments to make about your Bible, your King James, kick rocks with no socks on. I ain't got time to deal with it. Not today. Not there. Unapologetic. But if you are interested, I will ask that you inbox me your information so that I can personally send that to you as they come in. And I will make known how many, not how many are left, but I will make known that there are some that are available. And prior to you paying for anything, you will confirm that your order has been sent. For $34.99, you will receive that book. Blessed piece of information. And so that's very important to understand. So if you are a transformer or in the part of that first group that I have spoken to or have relayed to me that they're interested in receiving that, so that we can, even those who are going through personal Bible studies with me and also just want to get in gear, those are coming real soon. I'm actually expecting those any day now to come in. I will only be ordering them in certain quantities. I will not be housing a large inventory of these scriptures because I don't want to have them accumulate here. Um, and I am paying for those from my business account, but they will be divvied out as seen fit or as they come in and as you show your concern or your desire to have them. So that's important to understand. Moving right along. Today we're going to deal with the Gregorian calendar. We're going to deal with and questions from the previous week that I left open for this past Sabbath. And rest assured that we will be back on track after this information for the coming Sabbath at 7 p.m. So tell someone. I will not be on Facebook very long. I am creating an entire network so that I won't have to worry about, as the information becomes more robust, that I won't have to worry about going to Facebook jail or things of that nature, so that I can secure a better platform of my own to be able to release fluidly, finitely, with freedom. So, moving right along, I'm going to start with something that really sticks out to me. There was an individual here, Steve Robertson, and I'm going to tag him in this. I don't know him personally. I know that I follow him and he follows me on Facebook. But he made this comment that really, really stuck out to me, and I want to start today's broadcast with this. If the Bible confirms that the so-called Negro, African American, or black people of the Americans and other places are descendants of Israel, God's chosen people, how come we don't hear about it in church? We say things like, if we bless Israel, we are blessed. Steve, your comment was so exhilarating and so powerful that it's clear to me that you are woke, as they say. You are in path, you are in process, you are in journey of truth. It's a very invoking statement that I definitely want to bring just a comment to. Steve, you said that if we bless Israel, then we are blessed. And you didn't say that. I understand you're quoting what we are told and what we've been saying in churches for years now. I totally understand that. But let me clarify. For me, all of Israel is Hebrew, but not all Hebrews are from Israel. There are many tribes that we have so-called left suspended in animation as if we do not know who they are or we're not taught the truth. But I read through all of the comments and I read through, and it was very, very intriguing and effective communication. Sam Hosey, a friend of mine from many years ago, and currently I consider him a friend. Alfred Singleton, went to high school with him. He chimed in, and others were chiming in, and some of the people that were chiming in were disenfranchised and misinformed and caught up in exactly what I'm going to speak about to open this broadcast. The reason why we don't hear about it in church, Steve, with your very rhetorical and very thought-provoking question that you know the answer to, but I thank you for allowing yourself to be used by Yahweh to invoke such a response from someone like me. Thank you. It's of no, it's of no, so it's of no question to you that you understand this. The reason why that we don't hear it in our churches is because our churches are still dealing with the sacred cows of what they know. I mean, come on. Church leadership. Let me just start by saying this. I was not ran out of the church. My leadership was not challenged. As a matter of fact, my leadership was challenging. I stepped away from mainstream churchianity not to vacate the impact and the relevance and the interaction with churches as a pastor, as a prophet, because I knew I had to go away to prepare or present for a better way. Instead of having to fight individuals over the relevancy of Hebrew truth and religious outsets, I pulled away so that I could focus on concentrate on giving information to those remnant individuals who did not seek out a corporate pastor or a religious rabbi. But here's why, Steve. I answer Steve, and I'm talking to every person, every Steve that's listening. We are anesthetized with churchianity. We don't want truth. We want religion. And that's been proven since slavery. We act the same way as our ancestors did, who preachers on soapboxes who were given slave Bibles. We don't want truth. We want to be relevant. We want to be powerful. We won't even give up the fact that the Sabbath, even from a very relegated, very simplistic state, we won't even deny the fact that the Sabbath was never operated on Sunday. The fact that we will not even, Stephen, the fact that we will not even give up that premise is problematic, and it shows the heart of the problem. The reason why we don't want to hear it because we are locked into the knowledge that we already know, even though that knowledge has only been in our hands for a little bit, for that or thereabout of 200 years. Now, if I do the math, and I'm 40 years old, the lifetime of a person is hopefully 80 to 90. That's 2 to 3 people. If you go back 2 to 3 people in your life, you will find that that is about the age where this Bible that we read came into our hands. And we declare that we know everything that is to know. Some people love darkness. Many people love darkness in churchianity the same way that, I forgot the gentleman's name, in the Matrix, he loved ignorance. There was a scene in the Matrix where the man said, I know that this state does not exist. He's cutting the steak. And to go on, he goes on to say, but ignorance is bliss. He says ignorance is bliss, and he that bites into the steak. That's exactly the status of the church. The reason why that we do not embrace this teaching of truth is because it will remove the position of power and understanding that we have. From the position of the pulpit, those even in the pulpit position are afraid They are afraid to speak certain truth because it will mean their ousting and their livelihood and their money and their finances would be wiped out. Even those who know and they have become relevant to truth, they give tidbits and pieces here or there because they don't want to dismiss themselves from a system that simply uh, does them well. It benefits them well. Furthermore, there is the fear that if I teach the truth that I'm understanding, then it means that everything that I've ever stood for may be questioned or may be a lie. We are more willing to believe and walk in a lie than we are to believe and walk in truth to unveil more truth. Next, the reason why this isn't taught in churches, the truth of it all, is because, well, Steve, those who really have the ability to harness this type of truth, and you are in contact with someone, if it's not you yourself, but you seem to be in contact with someone who is delivering truth at a whole different magnitude into your life. And I commend you and I commend whoever they are for bringing such a thought-provoking situation. But the reason why, Steve, is because, you see, when we have an opportunity to hear truth like this, we decide who's allowed to teach, who's allowed to release this information based upon their credentials, based upon their affiliation of being the pastor's son or daughter, based upon their affiliation or their position within the current church. And then if they do not hold, and many of these are prophets, let's be very clear about this. This is not information that is just synonymous with everyday Christian church preaching. This is, if you look at the history from Scripture, many of these operations of uncovering such truth in the earth has been primarily reserved for someone not just who is prophetic, but is engaged in the prophetic office. There are many different lanes of prophets. But when you come across a teaching prophet who has the ability to unleash and unravel, this is now an operation of simply everyday individuals or pastors. A lot of this information should be passed on to pastors from prophets to stay in succinct order with what Yahweh wants released in the earth. But we choose, Steve. We choose who is in a position to teach us. We choose who our pastors are and not who our rabbis are. If he or she dances or looks good or has certain amenities or we proclaim them to be ready or astute, we have chosen, it's not just the fault of the pastors, it's also the fault of the parishioners. See, we have controlled our leadership with pocketbooks and purses. And so when you want truth to come out, and that person in the pastoral position is unable to fulfill those requirements, then we blame them simply because they can't teach what they've been bought and you purchased. We get to a place where even in allowing truth to be told, we can't silence the prophet or the preacher from speaking, but we sure can turn a deaf mute ear and then close our pocketbooks and hold hostage those who have information, who have not only have information, but have the availability and the veracity and the vitality to go into search and to find rabbinical truth. We hold them hostage. And we tell them that what they will teach is what we will listen to. And what we will listen to is based upon what we want to hear. Itchy ears, watering eyes. Just want to hear what I want to hear. And now we get to a place where we want to say, why wasn't I prepared? Well, There are individuals in this earth that you know that are available to release to be rabbi. You have to seek them out and search. And you have to. I'm not speaking to Steve now. I'm speaking to Steve's question because from all accounts and purposes that I understand, Steve is in the know. You have to get past your criteria of what you feel that person should look like, act like, be like, serve like. Take the parameters off of their lives, off of your eyes, and seek out something that's unconventional and untraditional. You're not going to find it in the majority of churches in the United States. If you go back to your churches of origin after all this, if you've gone back already, Yahweh help you. But after all this is done, if you choose to go back and you expect the same thing, my process, my platform on this platform is called the Yeshua Remnant, a remnant of individuals. Whenever Yahweh has moved, he's moved by remnants. But the reality of it is that we choose who we want to listen to. Ooh, I like them. Ooh, they got a good word. Ooh. Oh, I don't like him. He got this going on, and he got this, and it may be someone that you know personally. Well, I don't want to hear them today. If I have to crawl my butt in front of this camera and release truth when my heart is heavy and my head is low, then why is it that general persons get to choose when they want to hear, and then wonder when hell hits the fan? You wonder why you're not prepared. You wonder why it seems like this is not taught. It's not going to be taught because the system of churchianity, I didn't say Christianity, follow me. The system of churchianity is much like the system of America. It's not broken. It's working the way it was intended to work. The system of slavery and inequality and racism, it's not broken. The system of church of not receiving vital information of the Hebrew truth, it's not broken. It's the way the system was designed to be. And those who establish the system stand back and say, I don't see a need for it to be broken. I don't see a need for it to be fixed. It's the way it was designed to be. Your job is to break away from the system and start listening to, the red pill or the blue pill. Just a quick synopsis. I'm probably going to visit this statement of Stephen over and over again. I probably will bring it up as I have more thoughts on the matter. He says very clearly, if the Bible confirms that the so-called Negro, African Americans, or black people are America's are descendants of Israel. I like how you did that, Steve. I like how you put that information. Descendants of Israel. You're right. The first step is getting people to beg to ask the question. And maybe then people will begin to dismiss about 85 to 90% of the bull that goes on inside the churches. Is paganism and is not anywhere close to truth. Maybe they'll start to search. But in the meantime, Steve, my first comment to you is, as you already know, descendants of Israel. Even those, let me just let you know that I'm fully aware of where you are, and I'm unveiling this in doses and in bunches as the weeks go on. We don't even want to accept, they don't even want to accept, Steve, that the current inhabitants, I said current inhabitants of Jerusalem, I don't know if you can see it, but on my wall back here, there is a current map of Middle East and Central Asia all the way over to Africa. But we they don't even want to accept, Steve, that the current inhabitants of Jerusalem and Israel are not Jew. I know you're going to know this, or if not, you'll understand bits and pieces of it. They are from the Khazar, Russia. But we can't even get people to embrace the misunderstanding, the miscalculations of the calendars, and even the miscalculations or the intrusion of Israel by a foreign man, by a foreign people that simply took up residence. Why is that important, Steve? You and I both know, and those listening will understand even further as we go on. That to understand, it's just not about saying that you are Hebrew beyond Israel, that you are Benjamin, that you are Gad, that you are that you are of David, that you are of Manasseh, lost tribes, whatever the tribe Hebrew is, that you're of that. It's not just to identify we the people. It's deeper than that. If we are searching or looking at the wrong people, bless Israel. I hear you. I hear you, Steve. If we are blessing the wrong people, the wrong places, and the wrong things, then we are totally misaligned with the truth of prophecy as it pertains to the earth and the timing of the earth that has been manipulated and dastardly destroyed by man. That's why the focus must be on getting people to view the wrong people, view the wrong Israel, and to lay focus on the wrong people, places, and things. If the goal is to get you to focus on the wrong nouns, N-O-U-N, nugget here. If the goal is to have you to focus on the wrong nouns, people, places, and things, then you will never move on to being able to actually focus on the right verbs, the action. And every action that you take will be inaccurate and the wrong steps. So the goal is to mispronounce, miscommunicate the person, places, and things so that every step that you take, every move that you make can be the wrong action. And if there is the wrong action, the results can never be what Yahweh. That is why it is so important. That is what my job is. My job is to make sure that people are aligned with truth and armed with truth and engaged with truth so that we can begin. That's why I'm to begin to move in the direction of the right verb, the right action. This is not a job for your average everyday pastor who's simply trying to figure out whether or not observing the Sabbath is this way. And no. We got to get back to the reality. That's why my teaching, the rabbinical teaching of truth from the Torah and beyond, focuses on recovering a people's time, identity, and practices. Recovers a person's time, identity, and practices. The practices, the identity is who we are, who not just beyond Western culture, but from Brazil, from the islands, from all different places around the world. Identity, your time, understanding how the calendar has been affected to effectively render you unaware of who you are, where we are in time, and then the last, identity, time. We're going to get to the last one in a minute. So Steve, thank you. Thank you so much for your question. And with that, let's deal with the time issue. Last week we dealt with the the Julian calendar. And last week there was a question of what major Roman celebrated day ties with the festival of Dionysus. Last week, if you remember last week, we talked about the festival of Dionysus, where, let's just go to some of the notes, shall we? And here it is. This is in Second Maccabees. Second Maccabees, a book that we will also discuss why it was not a part of Canon today. I purposely have put Second Maccabees and Jubilees into the discussion today to purposely segue into why Maccabees the book of Maccabees and Jubilees was not included in the discussion of the Canon. And I would tell you more about what Canon is at the end, near the end of this broadcast. Second Maccabees 6 and 7 says, on the monthly birthday celebration, the king had the Jews taken under bitter restraint to partake of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Dionysus came, they were forced to walk in the procession in honor of Dionysus, wearing wreaths of ivy. Did you see that? Wreaths of ivy? Did you happen to see that? Wreaths of ivy. I know many believe that they understand exactly what it is, but here's a picture of it. Here's a picture of Dionysus, who was, and I want someone to tell me in the comments if you remember who was Dionysus' father. Oof, there's a lot of S's there. Who was the father of Dionysus? And if you recall that answer, that the person who's able to answer that question will be able to receive and given away a free copy of the unabridged scripture. If you are the first person in the comments to be able to tell me who the father of Dionysus was, and yeah, just go there. I'll give one out for this broadcast, and that includes your shipping and handling, that you'll receive a copy of that scripture. And yeah, so here we go. There's your question. Now, this person Dionysus was the Greek version of the god known as Bacchus. B-A-C-C. I think it's B-A-C-C or B-A-C-H-H. Bacchus. B-A-C-C-H-U-S. I think it is. We're going to get to that screen in a minute. But Bacchus was a celebration of a specific, and last week I asked, what was the major Roman celebrated day tied with the festival of Dionysus? Okay. Now, anyone think they know? I can't see the comments right now. I turned all that off. But let's see if you know. I'm going to give you a 10, 9, who the father was. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What was the celebration? I know people last week were on the edge and saying, oh, it's this date, it's that date. I think this may completely throw you off. Well, let's do a little recap before I give you that. In 167 BC, remember that King Antiochus returned to Jerusalem after his second campaign in Egypt. He banned the Hebrew religion, as well as the Enoch calendar, which is what we are going to move toward understanding, why he banned the Enoch calendar and what the Enoch calendar is. But he also prohibited religious practices. He dedicated the temple of Jerusalem to a specific god. Hint, 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 hint. And he ordered the Hebrews to worship this god and participate in a festival honoring his son. And his son's name, of course, is Dionysus, or the Roman original name was Bacchus. It's the festival of Bacchus. But that may not strike a chord with you, so let's find out exactly what the festival of Bacchus was, is, and will be. Here is a modern day picture, a very recent picture, of the festival of Dionysus, Bacchus festival. Mardi Gras. So Fat Tuesday and all this stuff, oh, but let me give you some more that goes deeper than that. Bacchus, the Bacchus festival, is still celebrated to this day, and it's called Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras, and includes a parade that's known as the Bacchus Parade. This is how the festival of Mardi Gras begins, all over, of course, New Orleans. But I'm telling you that it's wider spread than that, and it's deeper than meets the eye. Understand that the date of this celebration was changed to be the date before Ash Wednesday. What a coincidence! Those who controlled the Julian calendar, who was a Jew, excuse me, who was a Roman, Julius Caesar, has control of the Roman calendar, the Julian calendar, which we talked about last week, and the Gregorian calendar that we're going to talk about more today. The Romans had control over the entire process. So somehow, the festival of Bacchus was moved to be right before Ash Wednesday. That yeah, you know. Let's look at that some more. You see, these individuals are not. I mean, you can't tell by the dress, but these are today's people. This picture was taken recently, not from 20 years ago, not from a million years ago. Understand this. Understand that it was changed to be on the day before Ash Wednesday, and the name, get this, and the name New Year's Day was moved to March 17th. Was later changed to another holiday. What happens right about March? Anybody? Welcome signs. This was a welcome sign issuing the first day of spring with its festivals of green clothing, green beer, green mustaches, green foods. Anybody still green to what I'm talking about? It was a person who was sainted by the name that the Roman Church sanctified and that the Christian Church identified as St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day, having Irish descent in my family, having traceable Irish descent in my family, you have to understand that as much as you want to identify all the green and leprechaun and all that stuff to St. Patrick's Day that we know of, it's a lot deeper than that. Just like the green wreaths, it was set to, get this, it was set to happen right before the new harvest or the new crops come out, March, right after the thaw. It was a declaration to their gods, Bacchus, festival gods, Dionysus, so that they could, just like the pagan holiday of Christmas, or Sol Invictus, it was meant to please the gods with green that represented the green that would come outside. And these wreaths, the same as synonymous with Christmas, these greens, festival of green clothes and green foods and all that stuff, was meant to pay homage to their gods. But remember, it was moved to coincide with Ash Wednesday, which was moved to coincide with, any ideas? Ishtar. Easter. Resurrection. But why is this so important? It's so important to your maturation of understanding. Why is this teaching so important to teaching calendars and exposing the disconnection of these false truths? Why is this so necessary? I thought, EP, I thought that you were going to focus on Hebrew history with us. I thought you were going to focus on just dealing with the Hebrew nature of everything. No. First, every true Israelite is a Hebrew. I said that earlier. but not every Hebrew is an Israelite. First. Second, I am radically dealing with unprogramming fallacies that churchianity has installed and protected with firewalls. I'm connecting the nouns, as I said earlier, the people, the places, and the things, so that first I'm focusing on the places, the things, the calendars, the systems. I am first dealing with connecting the nouns, the people, places, and things, so that you may be able to move effectively into the verb or the action. As I said earlier, if I do not effectively deal with the noun of this thing, then later, play on words, then later your actions in this time of open understanding will be based upon more fallacies. First, I must deal with the aligning. By connecting history, by connecting historical, prophetic, biblical data and lies, by disconnecting the lies and dispelling them, now the acceptance of truth or convincing is not my responsibility. When I move into that, then I can move directly past worrying about if you believe me or not. That's the problem that I'm having right now is feeling the need in every area of my life to make sure that my communication is pure. And I find myself losing myself by trying to make people believers. Not the case. In me or otherwise. If I disconnect the false people, the false places, the false things. If I begin to connect the prophetic, the biblical, and the historical data that cannot be refuted, such as this information that you can search for yourself, then it's easier for me to focus on bringing the people to a place, the remnant to a place of understanding of truth, and not trying to make them believers. Not my responsibility. Let's move on. Let's move on to the Gregorian calendar. Last week we dealt with the BC, before the Common Era, versus the BCE and CE, the Common Era, and as it replaced the before Christ and AD, Adonai. Oh gosh, I'm having a brain slip here. The AD. Then we dealt with the time, understanding the periods of time and how the time was regimented. And we dealt with the Julian calendar. We talked very clearly about some things about the Julian calendar. Well, this was the progressive calendar that came after the Julian calendar. Here's some interesting facts that I want you to know and to be able to search for yourself. And I believe that after that, because of the time, I will move the rest of the material when dealing with Canaan and the book of Maccabees and Jubilees, and I will put that together with this coming Sabbath's information. So let's go into the Gregorian calendar and why it's important for this to be dispelled. Both the Julian and the Gregorian calendar are 365-day calendars, systems divided into 12 months. Now, it's important to understand that the previous calendar, the Julian calendar, was only a 10-month calendar. It was only 10 months. Okay. The winter for the Romans was unaccounted for. They don't want to talk about that. It was unaccounted for. When I say unaccounted for, I mean literally, once winter would hit, the cold would hit, they would just call it the winter time or the time of the cold. And they would wait with no dates until it passed, and then it was called spring. And the spring is a time where a lot of their God worship will start. It's funny that springtime is the same time that a lot of our churchianity activity starts. From Resurrection to Ash to Palm Sunday to all these dates, even Christmas or the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ, all that somehow coincidentally coincides with the time that right before and immediately after the Romans stopped counting or dealing with time. Seriously. You can search that for yourself and find out. That system, 10 months. Furthermore, the Gregorian calendar is only about 500 years old. Now that's a fact that I need you to really hold, because that's going to be a truth necessary to uncover truth in just a few minutes here. The Gregorian calendar is not even 500 years old. It's important to understand that currently, the current calendar that we, Western civilization, as well as the world, remember I told you last week that Russia and oh gosh, who else was it? Well, Russia was the very last country, excuse me, in the early 1900s, I believe it was 1918 if I'm not mistaken. They just started dealing with the Gregorian calendar. I believe it was 1918. Yeah, I think that was, I'm not sure. But understand that this calendar has only been for less than 500 years. I'm going to let that weigh in on you for a second. I'll get to that in a minute. Now, the Gregorian calendar also encompasses a leap year. We've all heard of it. It's never made sense to hardly anybody, but it's been explained so many times that, oh yeah, I get it. So the leap year, you got to tie your shoes and leap over this, and that's because every fourth, and I forgot one major element that I will share opening next week. I forgot one major screenshot that I wanted to show, and I totally missed it. But there's no scriptural reference that authenticates. There's no scriptural reference that authenticates the leap year component. Won't find it. It was added. Now before I get too far, you have to understand that the Gregorian calendar is named the Gregorian calendar after Pope Gregory the 13th. Pope Gregory the 13th. Do your history. Remember, I'm not just giving you biblical status or standards of historical data. I'm allowing you to go and find other cultures and other realms of history to find out that what I'm saying is completely compositorily true as it lines up with different perspectives of history. Pope Gregory the 13th, it was named after Pope Gregory the 13th because he was the one that shifted from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, but it came with so many flaws. It's only 500 years old, and we'll get into that in a minute. There is no scriptural-based reference that gives the allotment or the right to add in a leap year every fourth year, adding a leap year. There's also no scriptural basis for progressive dates. But what I mean by progressive dates? How is it that there are certain dates? I'm going to ask you questions. I want you to make you think. How is it that certain dates on calendars are mobile and they change? Your birthday, certain days of celebration that is called holidays or holy days. Why is it that they switch from year to year, but there are some that no matter what remain constant? Here's an example. If I was born on a Monday, January 29th, if I was born on a Monday, first of all, I have to concede that if January and February were added within the last 500 years, and I being born within the last 500 years, that I have to recognize that my date of birth was contrived by a calendar system that only 400 and less than 450 years prior to me did not even exist January and February. So I have to give to the fact that my date of birth may be different from what people say because January and February were not added or were only added over the past 500 years. Just let it sink in of how convoluted that is. But then there are certain days, holy days, holidays, festival days, that they make sure are observed the same day every year. But some don't. The reason that there is a shift, the reason for the continual shift of calendar dates was due to what they call drift. And this is where I did not the the right screenshot, and I want to get that to you next week. Uh, the reason why they call this for the drift is because of the equinox and the solstice. Now, there's the there's the autumn, the winter, the somebody help me out. The autumn, winter, the autumn, winter, summer solstice, and the Verennial or Venereal, I think it's Veneer or Verennial solstice. The last one is what they base everything off of. Okay, the northern vernal equinox. That's what it was important to Romans because this is how they would set their Ishtar or their Easter festivals. And if you recall from weeks ago, I told you how they combine their holy days with early church Christianity holy days and changed them with including that of the absolute power given for the Sabbath day being Sunday. That's how all this came about, and they base it upon their understanding of the vernal equinox. And I'll give you more about that next week. I'll show you the slides that I did not have prepared today. Pardon me for the unpreparedness of that moment. But it's important to understand that these changes have done more than just tear away the Hebrew and the world away from Hebrew heritage and culture. It has misaligned us from times, prophecy, and truth concerning the earth. We have to get back. Everything that I'm doing is aligning you to get back to dealing with the festivals of Yahweh, which were never supposed to stop. In fact, the scripture tells us that they will be to last forever. And if they were to last forever, that means that they are to last into eternity. And if they are to last into eternity, then that means they are being celebrated and observed in the heavens. And if they are being observed in the heavens, then we, being misaligned, must find our way back to alignment to be able to observe them eternally on the earth as it is in heaven. On earth as it is in heaven. Good understanding. Now, let's get back to that Gregorian calendar for just a minute, as I just exposed what this is all about. Now, stemming from GP, as they say, as we said, we still say, off GP, off general principle, the Gregorian calendar cannot be the authentic calendar or the authentic system in determining the feast of Yahweh. Simply put, the events that we're questioning outdate the existence of the calendar that's used to authenticate the dates. Think about that. Of GP, of general principle, the Gregorian calendar cannot be. It cannot be the authentic source to calculate and to understand ancient feasts and ancient prophecy. It's only been used for 500 years. Off GP. So if nothing else comprehends or makes sense, corresponds, it cannot be authentic. It's only 500 years old. Understand this. That those of you who don't know, I spent time years ago as a law enforcement officer. And the first thing that was taught is how to more than adequately, but permanently take away the opportunity or the understanding of time of people who are incarcerated. The first thing you do is take away all manner of time. As soon as you get into a situation, the training, once you come in contact in the back of a police car, the first thing that's done is time is wiped out from your understanding. Once you even get into the system and you are if you are in jail, and you're waiting for trial, no time is given to you by anyone that works in the law enforcement system. The first thing that Antichus did, if you recall earlier that I showed you this, the first thing that Antichus did is he forced the Hebrews, the Jews, to walk in procession and forget their time. Listen to this. Here it is. And all the children of Israel will forget and will not find the paths of the years, and will forget the months and seasons and Sabbaths, and they will go wrong as to all the order of the years. For I know, and from henceforth will I declare unto thee, and it is not of my own devising, for the book lies written before me, and on the heavenly tablets the division of days is ordained, lest they forget the feast of the covenant and walk according to the feast of the Gentiles after their error and after their ignorance. There will be those who will surely make observation of the moon, how it disturbs the seasons and comes in from year to year, 10 days too soon. Now, we're going to get into that in the weeks to come. But it's going to be more important for you to understand from that passage of Scripture that that this was prophetically ordained by Yahweh, as we have read in other scriptures that tells us that because of our disobedience, we'll be scattered in the earth. This is a correspondence or an understanding of truth that we will discover when we get further into the people. But it's going to be interesting for you to remember that this prophecy in the book of Jubilees, and we're going to talk about why the Jubilees is not there next week, this coming Sabbath, but it's imperative that you understand that we first deal with the calendar, and then we'll help to understand why the people were scattered and how that scripture is relevant. Okay, but Antichus understood this. King Antichus understood this however he came to understand it. But he understood that taking away time is important. That's why he denounced and made it illegal and killed those who observed any of the Hebrew holidays and did not coincide the holy days or the celebration days of the gods of his people. Very important to understand. Days do not change from year to year. You have just accepted that they do. Days do not change from year to year. We have just accepted this lie. If I was born on what you have known to be a Monday, then each year is Monday again, no matter if you are told next year that it's Tuesday is your birthday, and that it would take 6, 7, 8 years for the cycle to come back that your birthday is now on Monday. That's just what we're told. It's like saying today that this is a cup. This is a cup. And then tomorrow we're told, oh, this won't be a cup for the next 2 years. And for the next 2 years, this will be a cup. But it'll cycle around. We just accepted it. Have you ever asked why Ishtar is the same every year, but other monumental days are not? The control of time. Remember, the Romans, and including Pope Gregory the 13th, have fixed their days of Ishtar. That churchianity accepted the change as resurrection by manipulating the equinox and the solstice, as well as adding a leap year. Here's some information for you. In 46 BCE, before the Common Era, after Julius Caesar's victory over Pompey, major victory for Julius Caesar in his history, he extended the current calendar system, the current calendar year, from 365. He just extended it to 440 days. Just decided to extend it because he wanted the observance of his victory over such a great antithesis in his life as Pompey. He wanted to extend the celebration, so he simply extended that calendar year to 440 instead of 365 in order to celebrate his conquest. How does that sound to you? How does that sound to you? But the question that needs to be asked and answered is, why such books? Now today I have shown you again, 2 weeks in a row, I have shown you the book of Maccabees and Jubilees. And I know many people who, I can remember a time as a child that I remember seeing these books. And yes, I was that child who was actually looking in books like that. But I remember as a child, I remember looking in historical books and concordances and commentaries. And inside of these old, that I still have on my shelf from years and years ago, but many of these are gone now. I remember seeing commentary on the book of Maccabees. I remember it. I remember looking in Bibles and seeing 1st, 2nd Maccabees, and then it just disappeared. It just went away. Like literally, there were Bibles that I remember grabbing, and I was even in some situations I was shunned from looking at them. Like, no, don't touch that. Taboo. Same way that the slave Bible, and my wife, Tony Renee Clark, shared with me last week, 2 weeks ago, some interesting information about the slave Bible. She shared with me about some components of the slave Bible that I was not aware of. But we were told that no, don't touch that. Certain parts of the slave Bible, and if you're able to get, I'm working right now to get my hands on an original slave Bible or a copy of a slave. I'm working on it right now. These slave Bibles only packed in certain things, and you couldn't even read, but even if you could, this is what they would literally just hold the Bible and say, and the master says that we should obey those, can't read a lick, that have rule over us. Obey the master. Obey what the master says. The same way, Steve, if you're still listening, the same way that pastors, a myriad of pastors, most pastors stand back and now today still do the same thing even though they can read. Just quote slave narrative and tell us, don't you go reading that book over there. That's not the book for you. That'll get you killed. I'm not being facetious. I'm telling you, this is how it was. Do your research in history. The question has to be asked, why such books like Maccabees and the Book of Jubilees are disallowed, and furthermore, why this teaching is unobserved in church unity? That's a question that I will begin to unpack immediately as we open up on this coming Sabbath. I'll begin to unpack what Canon is and how early church leaders or Jewish leaders and Christian leaders were opposed factions on certain books and why they did not make what is known as Canon. And I'll simply give you an intro that Canon, for those of you who have gone to seminary, or those even those who are Bible scholars, excuse me, or those of you who have simply had righteous teaching and truth teaching, you find that kanon simply means standard or measurement. And that is how I will end it today and open up in the book of Maccabees, on the book of Maccabees and Jubilees next week. And we'll go from there. I thank you all, whoever is here, whoever is listening. I appreciate you. And I want to say, I appreciate you, but in reality, thank you for seeking out truth. Pray for me in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Pray for me that my strength increases. Pray for me that I grow. And pray for me that I do not quit and do not give up. I need that from you. I need that from you as much as you need this from me. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I ask that these words reach, change, and help someone. Help me to continue and not to quit. In the meantime, do me a favor. Go. Be great on purpose. Shalom.